The Cowboys are sitting on a ticking time bomb right now, and most fans have no idea how explosive this offseason is about to get because we are talking potential record-breaking contracts, a star receiver who might not show up to work, and a free agent safety that could completely transform this defense. So before we dive into all of this, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are dropping Cowboys news the second it happens. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming over the next few weeks. All right, let's get right into it because there is so much to unpack here, starting with Brandon Aubrey and the extension talks that have been brewing behind the scenes for a while now. Stephen Jones came out and basically confirmed what we have been suspecting for months when he said the organization has been working on a long-term deal and that offers have already been exchanged between both sides. Now, here is the thing that makes this situation fascinating and honestly a little bit tricky for the front office. Brandon Aubrey is not your typical young kicker who just entered the league and is looking for his first big payday. This man is turning 31 years old in March, and the reason for that is because he spent the early part of his professional career playing in MLS before making the transition to football. But here's what nobody seems to be talking about when they bring up his age. Does it even matter when you are arguably the best kicker in the entire NFL right now? Seriously, think about it for a second. Can you name another kicker in this league who has been more automatic, more clutch, and more reliable than Brandon Aubrey over the past couple of seasons? I am struggling to come up with one, and that is exactly why his representation is going to push for an absolutely massive contract. Now, let me break down the tender situation for you because this is where things get really interesting from a financial perspective. The first round tender option is completely off the table, and it does not make any sense whatsoever because that would cost the Cowboys around $8 million, which is way more than what the highest paid kickers in the league are making right now. The second round tender is the more realistic path here, and that would pay Aubrey approximately $5.8 million for the upcoming season. If another team wanted to swoop in and make an offer, Dallas would have the opportunity to match it and keep their kicker, or they could let him walk and receive a second-round pick as compensation. Here's the wild part, though. When you look at the current market for kickers, Harrison Butker is sitting at the top with $6.4 million per year, and Jake Elliott is right behind him at $6 million per year. Those two also lead the position in guaranteed money, with Butker having nearly $18 million guaranteed and Elliott around $14 million. So what does this mean for Brandon Aubrey? His agent, Todd France, who works with Athletes First, has a reputation for getting top dollar for his clients, and if I had to bet on what they are pushing for, it would be a deal that breaks every single record at the kicker position. More guaranteed money than anyone else, higher average per year than anyone else, more total value than anyone else. And honestly, can you blame them? This is the one kicker in the NFL who actually has real leverage because teams know how valuable he is and how hard it would be to replace that level of production. Stephen Jones mentioned they will use the tender if that is what it comes down to before the deadline. And honestly, I am okay with that approach because it gives both sides more time to negotiate without rushing into something. The cap hit difference between the tender and a new deal is not dramatic enough to force a panic move. But here is my question for you, Cowboys Nation. Would you be comfortable paying a kicker record-breaking money when he is already in his 30s? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to know where the fan base stands on this one. Now, we have to shift gears and talk about the situation that has everyone buzzing, and that is George Pickens because things are getting spicy real fast. According to a recent report from the Dallas Morning News, Pickens and his representatives wanted to begin contract negotiations at the NFL Combine, which means those discussions could already be happening as you are watching this video. So the massive question hanging over everything is how are those talks actually going and what kind of number is going to get this deal across the finish line? Stephen Jones addressed this over the weekend and again on Monday, and what he said was both encouraging and slightly concerning at the same time. He acknowledged that a decision on the franchise tag is coming within the next 7 to 10 days, which basically means they are working right up against the March 3rd deadline. Some people heard that timeline and thought, wow, they are moving fast, but let me be clear with you, that is not them being aggressive. That is simply the deadline forcing their hand. What Stephen said next is what really caught my attention, though. He stated that the organization wants Pickens in Dallas and that they think the world of him and believe he wants to be there too. Sounds great, right? But if all of that is true, then why has the long-term deal not gotten done yet? Here is where it gets complicated. The Dallas Morning News is reporting that Pickens is looking for at least $30 million per season, and my reaction to that was honestly pretty simple. Of course he is. That should not surprise anyone who has been paying attention to the receiver market. Think about it logically for a second. The franchise tag is going to cost somewhere between $28 and $28.8 million. If you tag him for 2 consecutive years, that puts you right around $31 million per year anyway. So why would Pickens or his agency accept anything less than $30 million per year with less guaranteed money when they could just play on the tag and still get paid? It would make zero sense for them to take a discount. The contract structure, I think, makes the most sense for both sides, would be something that slots in below what CeeDee Lamb received, but above what DK Metcalf got paid. That range feels like the sweet spot where Dallas can feel good about the investment and Pickens can feel properly valued for what he brings to the table. And here's the crazy part. By the time other top receivers like Jackson Smith and Jigba get their extensions and the market continues to rise, that Pickens deal might not even be a top 5 contract at the position. That is how fast things are moving in the NFL right now. But we are not done talking about Pickens, because there is another layer to this story that could create some serious drama in Dallas. The Dallas Morning News is also reporting that there is a strong possibility Pickens will not report to offseason programs if he is playing on the franchise tag. Now, technically, this would not be a holdout because he would not have signed the tag yet, but it would be a hold-in situation where he simply does not participate in team activities. Stephen Jones addressed this directly and said the organization always wants their guys there and that they have franchise players before and want him working with the team. He finished by saying it will work itself out in the coming weeks. But here is what confuses me. He said coming weeks, but the deadline is in 8 days. So what exactly is he referring to? Is he talking about off-season workouts, which do not start until April, right before the draft? Or is he talking about OTAs, which begin in mid-June? Something feels off about that timeline, and I cannot help but wonder if this is a posturing game from both sides. The information about a potential hold-in is almost certainly coming from the Pickens camp as a negotiating tactic, and the Cowboys are responding by expressing confidence that everything will get resolved. You know what would solve all of this drama instantly? Just get the deal done early. Do not wait until the last possible second. Do not pull a Dez Bryant situation where you are finalizing contracts at the buzzer and creating unnecessary tension. The Cowboys have a history of thriving on drama, but this is one situation where simplicity would serve everyone better. Get George Pickens locked up before free agency starts. Let him fully integrate with the new coaching staff and move forward with a clear plan. What do you think the chances are that Dallas actually gets this done before free agency? I feel like the odds are pretty low, but then again, last year it felt like Oso Odigizua was definitely getting tagged, and they managed to get his deal done right at the deadline. So maybe there is hope. Let me know your percentage guess in the comments, because I am genuinely curious what the fan base thinks. All right, now let us pivot to defense, because the Cowboys have some serious holes to fill, and one name that keeps coming up in conversations is Reed Blankenship, the safety from the Philadelphia Eagles. One prominent local analyst recently suggested that Blankenship might be the strongest realistic free agent connection for Dallas right now. The reasoning makes a lot of sense when you break it down. The Cowboys desperately need at least one new starting safety, and what Blankenship brings to the table fits perfectly with what the new defensive staff is looking for. Now, let me be clear about something. Blankenship is not the type of player who would line up in the slot or fill that nickel corner role that Dallas also needs to address, but he would be an excellent option in the back end of the defense paired with Malik Hooker or another safety they might bring in. His willingness to come downhill and support the run game is exactly what this defense needs, because if you have been paying attention, you know that run defense was a massive problem last season. The new scheme is going to feature a lot of two high shell looks and split safety coverages, which means you need guys who have great run instincts and can flow down quickly to fit gaps properly. Think about the old school Roy Williams type, or more recently someone like Cam Chancellor. You need safeties who are not afraid to get physical, and Blankenship checks that box. He also has a real knack for getting his hands on the football with several pass breakups and interceptions over the past few seasons. The fit just makes sense from a schematic standpoint. Now, as far as the current safety situation goes, Malik Hooker is the only player under contract right now at $7 million. There has been some discussion about whether he could be a cut candidate if the team makes a bunch of moves, but honestly, I lean towards them keeping him around for one more year rather than creating another hole they have to fill. The young guys on the roster like Marquise Bell, Julius Wood, and some others are intriguing, but can you really trust them in meaningful roles right now? Bell specifically is an interesting question mark, because how does he fit this new defensive system? his skill set does not seem like a natural match for what they want to do schematically. Donovan Wilson is also a free agent, and yes, he briefly worked with the new defensive coordinator during his analyst days, but I do not think Wilson is a great fit for what Dallas needs. His biggest issue last season was playing too deep and struggling to fit the run coming downhill. At this stage of his career, he seems like more of a box-only player, and that limits his versatility too much. So where does that leave us? The Cowboys need to be aggressive in free agency when it comes to safety help, and Blankenship feels like a realistic target who would immediately upgrade the back end of the defense. The question is, what will his contract look like when everything is said and done, and will Dallas be willing to pay the price to bring him in? This offseason is absolutely critical for the Cowboys, and the decisions made over the next few weeks are going to shape this roster for years to come. You know, Brandon Aubrey deserves to get paid, and if they have to use the second-round tender while negotiations continue, that is perfectly fine as long as the end result is keeping him in Dallas long-term. George Pickens represents the kind of game-changing talent that does not come along very often, and the front office needs to stop playing games and get that extension done before it turns into a messy situation. And on defense, the safety position has to be addressed one way or another, whether that means bringing in Blankenship or finding another solution in free agency or the draft. The bottom line is this team cannot afford to stand still while the rest of the NFC East continues to improve. What do you think, Cowboys Nation? Are you confident in the direction this offseason is heading, or are you worried about how these situations are going to play out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I want to hear from every single one of you. And if you made it this far in the video and you are not subscribed yet, what are you even doing? Hit that button and join the family, because we are going to be covering every single move this team makes all the way through free agency, the draft, and into the regular season. This is going to be a wild ride, and I do not want you to miss any of it.